Discovery. The act of finding out or detecting something new or something previously unrecognized as meaningful. Welcome to Historic Rugby, a living Victorian village nestled in the Cumberland Plateau, dedicated to preserving, protecting, and sharing its history and natural resources. Rugby is a quiet experience of the senses, something to discover slowly as its unique charm unfolds.
In its day, Rugby attracted English gentry and Americans. Summer visitors and permanent residents were offered the amenities of cultivated urban life in a healthful, rustic setting. The Rugby settlement was a venture jointly sponsored by a group of Boston industrialists and author Thomas Hughes, who was present at its opening ceremonies October 5, 1880. Hughes was the popular English author of the book Tom Brown's School Days and a supporter of trade unions. He intended for Rugby to be a class-free agrarian community. Rugby was a noble experiment based on cooperative living, and at its height had as many as 300 residents and more than 60 residential and commercial buildings.
But Rugby never fulfilled most of Hughes's idealistic goals. A typhoid epidemic, 2 disastrous fires, and the failure of the Cincinnati Southern Railway's promise to build a spur line to Rugby precipitated the village's decline. Thankfully, during the next 60 years, a small group of steadfast villagers kept the town and its unique architectural heritage alive. In 1966, a recent high school graduate from the nearby community of Deer Lodge, Brian Stagg, led a historic preservation-minded group to found the Rugby Restoration Association because so many of the historic buildings were in serious need of repair. The founding members had in mind not only what Rugby had been in its heyday, but what it could become with love and reverence. They envisioned saving and restoring the buildings still standing and reconstructing buildings no longer there. And they strongly believed that Rugby could return to being a living town that would attract more permanent residents to make Rugby's thriving vision realized. Today, the mission of Historic Rugby is to preserve, protect, and share this priceless historic site, including cultural and natural resources and the stories of those involved, which are steeped in the values of promoting historic preservation and restoration, honoring Rugby's unique cultural and spiritual legacy of the Cumberland Plateau and the British Isles, learning through art, music, writing, and performance, respect for and preservation of nature, as well as overcoming adversity through shared purpose.
Historic Rugby's initial purpose was to restore and rebuild the original buildings, but as the organization evolved, it grew to host tours, festivals, and lodging, and a cafe surrounded by state and federal parkland with abundant hiking opportunities. A residential neighborhood was developed by historically compatible design standards, and the historic Rugby Visitor Center was built in 2006, which now hosts musical programs, exhibits, and movies. As an important economic generator in a region of Tennessee that is economically distressed, Rugby leads a significant financial impact through tourism, sales and property tax collections, as well as local jobs and businesses that support Morgan, Scott, and Fentress counties.
Imagine for a moment standing in the Thomas Hughes Library. The silence fills your ears and the earthly scent of old books wafts into your nose and lingers. From the well-worn stone steps and cane-bottomed library chairs to the 7,000 original volumes, which is perhaps the best representative collection of Victorian literature in America, the library today looks as it did when the doors first opened in 1882. Step away from your busy life and experience this sense of wonder and calm in this awe-inspiring natural environment. Think for a minute of the generations of people who created community here despite overwhelming challenges. This is what we preserve today.
While some people may question rugby's relevance to today's world, the opposite can be more true. During this moment of great challenges, just as in the past, historic rugby is an inspiring and timely living example of people working towards a common purpose, to preserve a cherished history and create a broader, thriving community. Historic lodging is available in Newberry House and Pioneer Cottage, as well as the reconstructed Percy Cottage. There are also private lodging options in the village. We hope you know that you are always invited to enjoy the experience of rugby by spending the evening with us, a weekend, in one of our original buildings, just as the visitors did in the 1880s.
New construction continues with homes and businesses in Rugby. Since the 1990s, Historic Rugby has worked to fulfill the vision for the settlement by expanding residential development with design standards that are consistent with original construction, adding over 35 new buildings. When you think of events at Historic Rugby, you might think Ghostly Gathering or Spring Festival or Christmas at Rugby. But Historic Rugby also hosts multiple events and workshops each month, and it's open to the public for heritage tours from mid-March to mid-December.
Historic Rugby's charming buildings and outdoor venues, including this 100-seat Rebecca Johnson Theater, offer rentals as mid-sized venue for private events like weddings, live performances, corporate meetings, and family reunions. Intimate guided walking tours features several historic buildings, including the 1882 Thomas Hughes Free Public Library, the founder's 1884 home Kingston Loud, Christ Church Episcopal built in 1887, and the 1907 schoolhouse. Each of these unique structures share a part of Historic Rugby's story and reflect the historic belief that the buildings should harmonize with their natural surroundings. Several times a year, Historic Rugby hosts Victorian teas in one of our historic venues. Rugby has its own resident tea master and a special tea blend. There are always lots of scrumptious goodies, scones, croissants, and cookies, along with display of tea table settings.
Perhaps a favorite event at Rugby is the annual Cemetery Lantern Tour at Laureldale Cemetery. It's very popular and always sells out. Each fall, guests are invited to meet some of Rugby's most colorful, though dearly departed characters over the past 140 years through stories that are shared from actual letters, diaries, and newspaper accounts. One story from the Lantern Tour comes from Margaret Hughes, the mother of Rugby's founder, Thomas Hughes.
Like any mother, I am most proud of my children. The work Thomas has begun here, I am certain, will prove to be immensely successful. Some wondered if I would miss my social life in England, but I would not trade my days at Uppington House for anything on this earth, with so many wonderful friends surrounding me. I think I will ride along the bridle path to the river today. This is just the time of year to take in the beauty of the mountains.
The events and tours at Historic Rugby play a vital role in telling the rugby story and paints the backdrop for future generations to really understand the original residents' experiences. Surrounded by an awe-inspiring natural environment, Historic Rugby connects visitors personally and physically to generations of people who created community despite overwhelming challenges.
Historic Rugby helps people find meaning and connect to something larger in life, whether in terms of community, encountering nature, learning from the past and the commonality of the human experience, or just experiencing a slower pace of life in a unique place.
Historic Rugby is not just a bunch of old buildings. It also protects significant natural resources. In fact, from the very beginning, connection to and preservation of the natural world was a big part of the Rugby plan. The original site plan included commons and bridle paths that were accessible to all. Today, Historic Rugby is an active partner for land protection with the Tennessee Natural Areas Program and the National Park Service.
The Victorians believed that a healthy life lived closer to nature not only improved physical health, but also enhanced spiritual connection, morality, and social cooperation.
In Thomas Hughes's opening day remarks from October 5, 1880, he said,
"We have here 2 beautiful streams which will be a delight forever to those who dwell here, if they are left free for the use and enjoyment of all. Then there must be reservations for parks, gardens, and recreation grounds. Our wish is to preserve the natural beauties of this place for the people who live and visit here."
His wish continues today.
One of the much beloved and iconic outdoor recreation resource is the Gentleman's Swimming Hole. Located on the Clear Fork River, the Gentleman's Swimming Hole was originally and remains today an idyllic destination and is often used as the first official hike for youngsters learning to appreciate the natural world. Rugby resident George Zepp remembers outings to the Gentleman's Swimming Hole with his parents in the 1960s.
We found mussels in the river and felt the minnows tickling our feet if we stopped swimming. Many summer showers forced us to seek temporary shelter under a rock overhang along the trail. When they ended, we carried on with our picnic on a high ship-like rock we knew as Picnic Rock, next to the swimming spot.
The Gentleman's Swimming Hole is located in the Big South Fork, about a half mile from the trailhead at Laurel Dell Cemetery. Historic Rugby actively supports outdoor recreation with over 10 miles of hiking trail. The Rugby community is flanked by the Clear Fork and White Oak Rivers, both within the adjacent 120,000-acre Big South Fork National River and Recreation Area. Through a partnership with the National Park Service, a ranger station is located in the historic Rugby Visitor Center, and guided hikes are offered on the weekends during the summer.
Historic Rugby has a partnership with the Tennessee State Natural Areas Program and is home to 762 acres Rugby State Natural Area. In addition to protected land, resources, the natural area also preserves the memory of the homestead of the Massingale family, who were pre-Rugby settlers. Monthly guided hikes are offered in the Rugby State Natural Area, and most recently, Rugby was named a trail town on the 354-mile Chateau Trace Trail, which will bring long-distance trail hikers to Rugby.
We recently asked some visitors what they love about their time in Rugby. Historic Rugby stands true to its Victorian founders' pursuits to reveal fondness in nature's variations and eccentricities, to weave them into the broader theories that explain the greater themes of the living world. Life is meant to be discovered, and you'll find Historic Rugby has an ample supply of wonderments just waiting to be discovered. We really appreciate your time today, and we hope you've enjoyed getting to know more about Historic Rugby. But most of all, even if you visited in the past, we hope that you will discover us again real soon.